Hello there, and welcome to Lesson 2 on this series of Intro to Game Maker created for the students of Saturday Academy. I am Will Patillo, the instructor for this course, and today we are going to be working some more on the movement ability of our player and diving a little bit more deeply into this drag and drop scripting aspect of game development. Now, just a little reminder as to where we're at. We're able to move around, and it works fine. We can set the speed pretty easily, but it's kind of glitchy. Like right now, I am holding down the down arrow key, but my character isn't moving. And if you try it out, you'll probably see the same thing. And the common cause to all the glitches that show up come up when I have two keys pressed at the same time. Once I release a key, then unexpected behaviors occur. So let's take a look at our existing code or scripts, I should say, to get a sense of what might be going on. So, okay, I'm pressing the left key and I move left, up. Okay, this all looks right. But let's consider this: when I press these key ups, I automatically set the speed to 0, no matter what. And this is the same is true for all of them. Now, what happens if, say, I'm pressing the left key and I'm moving left, and then while I'm still moving left, I press the up key. So I'm holding the left and the up key at the same time for at least some period of time. Then so at that point, I'll probably start moving up, even though I have both keys pressed, and that's fine so far. Then when I lift up the left key, that fires this key up event, which sets my speed to 0, even though I'm still holding the up key. Because again, look here, we're not actually looking for key holds, we're looking for the moment that the keys are pressed for starting movement, and key up for the stopping movement. Now, there are a number of ways we could deal with this. One is we could change these events so that they're checking for key hold, and and then say if multiple keys are pressed, well then maybe we move in a diagonal or something like that. And that could work, but I'm gonna stick with this event system and just fix the error by adding a little bit more complexity to what's going on. Oh, one thing, by the way, I forgot to mention this last time. We're setting the speed variable to 5, which I think it's a little fast. I'm gonna set this back down to 2. Some of you might be asking right now, or when I was going through this, to what? Setting the speed of 2. What are the units here? Is this meters per second? Is this miles per hour? Well, it's actually pixels per frame, and that may sound a little strange because, aren't those variable? Well, the answer is no. As you may remember, in our rooms, we actually directly set the grid and pixel size in our various properties of the room. And also, the frame rate is not variable. GameMaker actually locks the frame rate of your game to a particular amount, which you can set. So if you take a look at Options and click Main, so over here, and then Main Options, General, you'll see right here, game frames per second, and mine is set to 60, which I think in GameMaker Studio 2 is now the default. The default used to be 30. So just to get a sense of what this looks like, I'm going to set this at keep this at 60 for a moment. Run the game. Okay, so now this is the speed that I'm moving. Okay, close that. I'm going to set this to 30 just to get a bit of contrast. Hit Apply so that the change actually applies, and run the game again. And now, you'll see my character's moving a lot slower. It also looks a little bit glitchy, like I can kind of see it stopping. I don't know, maybe you can't notice that. So I'm going to go back to 60. There's really no reason not to use 60 frames per second. But just so you know what speed actually means. It moves a certain number of pixels, the speed value, and that happens this many times per second. So when you have both of those variables, then it's very precise as to how fast you're actually moving. Alright, enough of that. So that's our speed. Now, another thing that I want to change before we get into fixing the glitch, and actually this is going to be an important step, as we'll see later on, is notice in all of these presses there's a lot of repetition. It's the same three components that I had cut and paste between all these key presses. And, 3 is not that bad, but the thing is, it's kind of like how you remember with the variable, how with the speed, how we just set a variable in one place so that whenever it changes, we don't have to change it in a bunch of different places. We're going to do the same thing with these, because if movement works differently for any one of them, and we are going to be changing it now, then we have to change it in a bunch of different places. And then especially as this gets longer, keeping all of these blocks in a bunch of different spots is going to get harder and harder to maintain. So we're going to do something like we did with that variable, except with logic. And for that, we're going to use a new resource called a script. So I'm going to create a script right here. Click on Scripts, right-click, Create Script, and I'm just going to call this Move. I think other people probably use that same naming convention of scr_move. I don't like that. I'm just gonna call it Move. And from my player, I'm just gonna take, let's go with right, for example, and select all of these. So click one, hold Shift, click the bottom one, so to select them all. Copy. So right-click, copy, and then go over to Move. Right-click, paste. All right. So now I have my script created, and I'm going to be making some changes to it in a moment. But first, to show you, get a bit of a sense of what a script does, in this right click here, I can now delete all of these actions. Actually, to prevent that pop-up from showing up, I'll just select them all here, press delete. Oh, sorry, I guess I have to. Click OK, so to confirm deleting those. And now, instead of calling those 3 different actions, I'm just going to execute a script. And then, zoom in a little, in this script field, select a resource and select Move. And now, things should work exactly as they did before. And I can still move right. So it's just with one action instead of 3, I'm able to do the same thing. Well, that hasn't actually saved us any work yet, but it will in a moment. So I'm going to do the same thing in all these other key press events. So key press left, select them all, delete, and throw in the script, move. Repeat that for up, select them all, delete, and throw in the script. And by the way, if you want to find where this is, you just type in script and you'll see it. After that, it'll be in recently used. Okay, move, key press down, delete them all, and move. Now there's going to be a problem here, but we'll address it in a moment. I just want to show this to you first. Control S to save, and let's run this. So now when I press the arrow keys, you can't see this, but I'm pressing all 4 of them, and I'm always moving to the right. Well, that's because the script right here says walk right and move to the right. And actually this introduces a little bit of a complication with using scripts, is that although the 4 directions were very similar, they're not exactly the same. We call the same 3 actions in every single case, no matter what direction I'm moving, but the values are different. So I'm going to show you a little trick here that allows you to use different values in the same script. So start with taking set direction fix, and I'm going to remove this. And instead, let's see, type in direction, and let's see, set direction variable. Here we go. So take this in, and you can put it right where it was. And now we're set to direction. But what direction? Well, just type in something called argument, A-R-G-U-M-E-N-T, 0. Okay. And now, this allows us to pass in some information into the script. and it'll act differently depending on what we pass in. So it can be helpful just to see this first. So I'll go into my various directions, and so for right in this argument field, so the very first one, this is going to be argument 0, I'm going to type in 0. And for up, type in 90. Oh, by the way, just a little convention here. I'll show you. In terms of these numbers that I'm just entering in right now, the way directions work. So previously we'd just been clicking a little arrow, but how it worked was just kind of not really explained. A direction is essentially an angle. So imagine that you're in your game world, and kind of looks like this, and this over here is 0 degrees going to the right. Up, if we goes clockwise. So over here is 0. Straight up is 90. To the left is 180. And down is 270, all in degrees. So these are the numbers that we're going to use for our 4 directions. So that means for right, we put in 0 for argument, up 90, left 180, and down is 270. So now, in our movement script, if I had pressed, say, right, argument 0 is going to become 0, and we're going to set its direction to 0, which is right. If the user presses up, then this is going to receive a 90, which means the direction is going to be set to 90, which is up. So let's just see what that looks like. I run the game, and I press right, and I go right. I press up, I go up. I press left, I go left. I press down, I go down. And the movement's working just as it was before, except that now I'm always facing to the right. Well, the reason for that is right here. I have set sprite, set player walk right. And as to how to fix this, well, you may have guessed it, I need another argument. So to create another argument, I'm just going to call this argument 1. And we can pass in a lot of arguments, you can see. It goes all the way up to, looks like 15. But we just need 2. So argument 0 and argument 1. And now we need to actually pass these in from all of our directions. So let's start with right. Now, okay, see we only have one argument field. Well, not to worry, we just press this little plus button here. So now we have an additional argument. And in this, I'm going to pass in the sprite that I want to set my character to when I press the right key. So that is SPR, and now I have my little autocompletes, player walk right, SPR player walk right. For up, add a new argument, SPR player and walk up. For left, add a new argument, SPR player walk left. And then last, for down, add an argument with the plus, SPR player walk down. All right, and let's try running this again. And now, yes, I am able to move in all 4 directions, and I have the appropriate sprite in each case. Now, one other thing that I'm going to add here to just make all of this stuff more readable. Now, maybe this made sense, maybe it didn't with the directions, but this can be annoying to remember. Like every time I want to go left, I have to remember that left is 180. That can be tricky when you come back to, I may know what that means now, but if I come back to this code later, I have to think about it for a little bit. So let's just do something to make this a little bit more readable, and we're going to use something called a macro. That's where we just define an association between a number and something that's easier to understand, more intuitive, like the word left. We just define those in one place, And then instead of 180, I can say things like left right here, and it'll be easier to read. So a macro, you can define it anywhere, but just to keep everything organized and easy to find, I'm going to create a new object, and I'm going to call this obj macros. And in my macros, I'm going to add an event, create, and this object does not need a sprite because it's not actually going to be visible in the game. So on create, I need to, let's see, where are the macros? Type in, oh, there they are, macro, define a global compile time constant, and we're going to have 4 macros, one for each direction. So hit the plus a couple times. All right, now I have several macros, and I'll start with convention here for global constants is to use all caps. So in all caps, I'm going to say right, and its value is 0 because you know, that's 0 degrees is right in GameMaker. Next macro up, and get that window out of the way. That's 90. Then left is 180, and finally down is 270. Alright, great. So now we've basically just created associations between the word right and 0, up and 90, left and 180, down and 270. And what that means is in these key presses, instead of having just putting numbers in here, I can say left. And up, I'll just say up. Down, down, and in right, I say right. And that makes this nice and easy to read. Much clearer what's going on. You move right and use the right player sprite. So let's make sure that works. I didn't make any errors. And yes, it all works as expected. Now, that may have seemed like a lot of work for not a whole lot of benefit. That's because our number of actions wasn't very long. But as we go forward and start actually fixing the bug, which we're going to do next, you'll hopefully start to see the value of using some of these scripts. So let's consider what is going on. On these key up for these various directions, this is essentially the problem, is that we're just setting the direction, or setting the speed to 0, without regard to whether the player is pressing a key. So what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to check when the left key is up, or any key actually, and I'm going to go through each key that could cause movement and check if that is being pressed right now. So way I can do that is, see, I'm going to take a Boolean expression because it's either pressed or it's not. So the result is true or false. So that's why I'm going to use the if expression, check if it's true or false. And I'm going to check, using this expression field, whether the left key is pressed. Actually, I'll just start with right. Well, why not? So to get whether the right key is pressed, we're going to type in, actually, I may need to look up the syntax here. So bring up Chrome, let's see, game maker check if key is pressed. Okay, keyboard input. And, yes, here is our syntax we need right here, keyboard _ check. So, type that in here, keyboard check. So this checks if some key is being pressed, and this requires an argument, that's what these parentheses mean, to say, well, what key are we looking for? So what I'm typing here is BK _ and right. This VK, just memorize it. The thing inside the parentheses means the right key. And this whole thing says check if the right key is pressed right now. So if the right key is pressed, then, like when we lift up on a key, then we want to move to the right. Well, fortunately, we already have a script for that. I can just execute script and say move, and put in our arguments for right. And SPR player walk right. Okay, so this will, if the right key is pressed, then we move right, which, yeah, makes sense. And then we're going to repeat this for all the other directions. So click one, control click to get the other, so they're both selected, and then copy and paste. And again, and once more. Then also I'm going to take this set speed and I'm going to drag it down. So put it so that it's showing up underneath this if statement. Click that, and now it'll show down here. And I'll explain the arrangement of all these in a moment. So I don't have a lot of space to look, so I'm going to tab these down and maximize this. All right, got a little bit more room to work here. So that's the right. Let's now check for up and change our arguments. Up, walk, up. Okay, so this is the same thing as above, but with the up direction. Now let's check whether the left key is pressed, in which case we move to the left and set the sprite to the left sprite. And then finally, last, for down, check if the down key is pressed, move it in the down direction and set its sprite to the down sprite. Okay. So whenever you have these like if statements or a script that executes conditionally, then you put it in this like sidebar, and that it's kind of like open and closed curly braces in code. It says if this happens, then do all the things that are indented a little bit. Now one problem that's going to happen here is it's going to check all of these if expressions, no matter whether or not the previous one's fired. I guess that's not so bad, but it's just going to keep going down the line through all of these, and no matter how many of these evaluate to being true, I mean, yeah, they'll move in the correct direction, but we'll still get this set speed to be 0. So this still isn't going to work. So to fix that, I'm going to use this exit. And I'll place that there, and this here, and again here, and again, and again there. So now, if the right key is pressed, we move to the right and stop. We don't look at anything else. We just leave the script, and we're done. Same with all the other directions. So if any key is pressed, we're not going to reach this. We're not going to set the speed to 0. But if none of them are reached, if none of these conditions evaluate to true, then and none of these exits happen, then and only then we'll set the speed to 0. Okay, so now so far we've been working entirely inside of let's see, I'll bring up my objects view. Right now, all of this code was in this left key up. And rather than cut and paste all of this into those other directions, you guessed it, we are going to create a new script. So right-click, create script, and since this checks to see whether we're going to stop or not, I'm going to call this StopCheck. Okay. And now let's go back to this key up left, and we'll just take all of these actions. So go right up to the top here, shift, click, select them all, cut, go into StopCheck, right click, paste. All right, we put all of this inside of our StopCheck script, which itself calls the move script. So it's okay to have scripts call other scripts. The only thing to watch out for is you wouldn't want to have move call StopCheck and create a cycle of scripts calling each other, because you could end up with an endless loop that crashes your program. But we don't need to worry about that right now. Okay, so we got that. Now we need to actually call the script. So in this key up left, which is now blank, we just execute script and StopCheck. And I don't think this needed any arguments. No, it did not. So let's go back and do the same thing for all the other directions. So we can get rid of this set speed and instead execute script, StopCheck. Right, get rid of the set speed, execute script, StopCheck. And then down, remove the set speed, execute script, StopCheck. Okay, and I think that, let's see what this does. Okay, so I'm getting some compiler errors right down here, and this prevents me from being able to play the game. So let's see what's going on here. Cannot set a constant. Sprite player walk right to a value. And, oh, yeah, that's because I put this in the wrong place. I put this in a target field when what I really wanted was to pass it as a second argument. So I'm just going to Control X, select all the stuff in target, and put that in an argument field. Same thing for all these others. Control X, add a new argument, put it there. And let's see, it's for up. Control X, plus, new argument, add it there, and move right, new argument, cut, and paste. And there we go. All right. So let's save this and try it again. Okay, the compiler errors are gone. I'm in the game, and let's see what happens. I press left, let go. Okay, so far so good. This is working as before. Now I'm going to try to press two keys, and I let go of one of them, and I keep moving in the direction that one of my keys is pressed. So much smoother. My character is never stopped while I'm holding a key, and I'd say this is good. So that's a lot of content there using this script functionality. Hopefully you can get a little bit of an appreciation as to how powerful these scripts can be in preventing duplicate code. And I mean, because yeah, I mean, look at it right now. Our various movements are just like one line. So that'll be all for today, and thank you very much for watching. I hope you learned something, and don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can hear about future videos as they come out. And until next time, I'm Will Patillo, and I will see you in the next one.